Do you think that graphic novels are just for kids, or they are just flashy comic books talking about superheroes? If so, then think again. Hi everyone, I'm Riya Gandhi and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about one of the most important forms of storytelling that was often overlooked in the past, especially in literature and academia, and that was graphic novels. A lot of people confused graphic novels with comic books or picture books and took it to be a very non-serious part of literature. But these graphic narratives are extremely layered, complex, adult narratives that blend visual art with compelling storytelling to tackle themes like war, gender, caste, identity, trauma, and alienation. Something that you don't commonly see or read in comic books for that matter, right? So in today's video, I thought let's make it clear once and for all the similarities and differences between comic books and graphic narratives, and also talk about 5 of the most important graphic novels that you should read, which will also tell you how literary storytelling has evolved. And if you are preparing for competitive exams like UGC NET English, then you will know that questions related to these graphic novels are frequently asked. So stay tuned till the end of this video and don't forget to make notes. The concept of telling a story through visuals, through images, is not a new one. From the sculptures that were present on the walls of the temples to an entire narrative stretching out in the ancient caves, storytelling seems like a very ancient tradition. In that sense, when you talk about comic books and graphic novels, these might seem just two sides of the same coin, because both of these forms, they are trying to tell stories through images, through visuals. But there are certain key differences which set them apart. What are they? For instance, comic books, they originated in the 1930s with the emergence of some of the most famous superhero comics like Captain America, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and all of these characters. Now, comic books, they were basically episodic in narrative and they were released periodically like monthly, bi-monthly, or at other such intervals. Think of television serials, right? So what used to happen was that at the end of every comic, the author might end it with a cliffhanger so that the readers would be urged to buy the next issue whenever it was coming. On the contrary, when you talk about graphic novels, which originated in the 1960s and the 1970s, they were like full-length movie or like an entire series packaged into one. They would offer longer and lengthier narratives within a single volume, adding more complexity to the entire story arc and more depth to it. So, when you think about comic books again, as I've mentioned previously, they were published periodically, they were published in an episodic narrative. You can imagine that they might not have that much amount of complexity that a graphic novel would. Typically, comic books focus more on quick, action-packed sequences, whereas graphic novels tend to delve deeper into character development, into complex plots, layer themes, adding more emotional depth to the narratives, providing a very rich and immersive reading experience to the readers. As far as the target audience is concerned, comic books, they generally cater towards a broad audience, but they are also geared towards younger readers because they provide a variety of genres from science fiction, horror, fantasy adventures, superhero tales, and more. Graphic novels, on the other hand, they cater towards adult readers because they frequently cover mature and diverse themes, often talking about socio-cultural events and talking about philosophical and more reflective questions and themes. Since graphic novels have become a medium to comment on socio-cultural issues and they also ponder on philosophical questions related to life, they are considered to be extremely critically acclaimed and they are counted as serious literature and taught in universities. The term graphic novel was first popularized by William Eisner when he published one of the first graphic novels, and that is A Contract with God. Now, having understood this key difference between comic books and graphic novels, let's move on and discuss 5 of the most important graphic novels that every English literature student should know, especially if you are preparing for your UGC NET English exam. The first graphic novel that we are going to discuss in this video is Mouse by Art Spiegelman, considered to be one of the most influential and powerful graphic novels ever written. Now, this isn't your regular comic style story. In fact, it talks about a very deeply personal and historical event wherein the author is interviewing his father, Vladek, who is a Polish Jew and a Holocaust survivor. Now, what's most interesting about this entire graphic novel is the animal allegory. Jews are represented as mice, Germans as cats, and Poles as pigs. And it sounds odd at first, right? But then it talks a lot about the horrors of the Holocaust. Now, this entire book is divided into 2 timelines, the past as well as the present. The present basically takes place in 1970s New York, where Spiegelman is talking to his father, Vladek. And the past is delving into Vladek's memories before the Second World War, and also surviving Auschwitz. Now, this entire story is very layered. It's not just talking about history and war. It's also talking about memory, grief, trauma, isolation, and the strained father and son relationship. Now, as far as its overall visual style is concerned, it's pretty much minimalist. It uses black and white, stark black and white illustrations, which makes it very readable for the readers. One of the most interesting things about this graphic novel is that this is the only graphic novel to have won the Pulitzer Prize, and that tells you a lot about its literary and cultural weight. Next up is Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. This is one of the most powerful autobiographical graphic novels that talks about the revolutions in Iran through the eyes of a young girl. Originally written in French, Persepolis is divided into 2 parts. The first part is titled as The Story of a Childhood, which talks about Marjane's own experiences when Iran was transformed overnight because of the Islamic Revolution in 1979. So this part basically talks about how Satrapi deals with the strict religious laws that were implemented in her country overnight. And then comes the second part of the story, which is titled as The Story of a Return, wherein she is now a teenager and she is sent to Vienna for her safety. But then things aren't easier abroad as well. She's facing alienation, identity crisis, and eventually she comes back to Iran to only face newer challenges. A marriage is arranged for her, she goes through divorce, and there is finally an eventual and emotional departure to France. And that's where the novel ends. One of the most interesting things that I find in this novel is that when you read it, you will find a very sure and certain undertone of humor. Like, she deals with so many serious things like the revolutions in Iran. She's talking about her own teenage life. She's talking about the problems that she dealt with. And especially the most important thing is how she's dealing with war and how her family is dealing with war with so many deaths around her. But there is still that certain undertone of humor in it. And that humor is acting as a way of resisting against all of these oppressive power structures around her. Now, in terms of its overall visual style, she has used stark black and white illustrations for the characters, as you can see over here, which adds weight to her story. And not just that, based on the figures that she has drawn, the illustrations that she has done, I think it's heavily inspired from German Expressionism. So overall, when we are talking about Persepolis, it's more than just a graphic memoir. It is a Bildungsroman. It is a coming-of-age story, because we are talking about the development, the emotional and the mental development of this young girl to a young woman, right? Navigating war, surviving war, patriarchy, and exile. And therefore, it also provides counter-historical narratives, because we are talking about a woman who has survived war and how she navigates it in both public as well as private spaces. Something that we generally don't read in mainstream historical narratives or mainstream literature, right? By the way, if you're interested in such contemporary texts and you want to prepare them for your UGC NET English exam, or you're looking for more structured guidance related to it, then I do take live one-on-one sessions in which I'm covering British literature, Indian English literature, literary theories, and all of those courses. All the details regarding these courses are attached in the description box below, so don't forget to check it out. Moving on with the next graphic novel, we have Kari by Amruta Patil that was published in 2000. One of the most interesting things about this graphic novel is that it is considered to be India's first graphic novel to be written by an Indian woman, talking about some of the most relevant themes today like gender identity and urban loneliness. The entire novel is divided into different parts, wherein the first part itself begins with a very heavy and an emotional moment, wherein Kari and her lover Ruth, they try to take a very drastic step in order to attempt to escape from the weight of the life that is burdening on their shoulders. But both of them survive and they realize that life has provided them with a different chance. In the second part of the novel, which is titled as Fairy Tale Here, we as readers, we are introduced to Kari's professional world, wherein she is working as a copywriter for an ad agency and she is writing copies for this brand of Fairy Tale Hair. Then the next part of the novel is called as Crystal Palace, which is also the name of her apartment, of her shared apartment, wherein we are introduced to her roommates and some of the most eccentric house guests. So this is the entire story in short of Kari. When we talk about the visual arts, as far as that is concerned, it is very abstract and it's very shadowy, again mirroring Kari's fragmented inner world. The fourth most important graphic novel that we are going to discuss in this video is Sarnath Banerjee's Corridor that was published in 2004. Now, a lot of people think that Banerjee's Corridor is the first Indian graphic novel. But understand, guys, that this title, the title of the first Indian graphic novel, actually goes to Arijit Singh's The River of Stories that was published in 1994. So, when we are talking about Corridor, it is set at this bustling heart of Delhi, and it provides a very bleak and a very witty perspective at urban alienation and the modern absurdities of life. At the center of it all, you have the protagonist, Jahangir Rangoonwala, who is a second-hand bookseller and is also selling tea. And so his bookshop becomes like a central cultural hub for a very eccentric set of men. There's Brigu, who is always looking for rare collectibles and is searching for meaning in his love life. Then you have Digital Datta, who is caught between Marxist ideals and searching and looking for H-1B visa. Then you have Shintu, who is a newly married person and is looking for something that's going to add spice to that. And add to this collection, you have a forensic expert and a karma-seeking oddball. This entire sort of bunch of eccentric men will definitely provide a very strange and a surreal look at things. And finally, the last and the most powerful graphic novel that we are going to discuss in this video is Bhimayana, Incidents in the Life of Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar, published in 2011 by Navayana. Hailed as the top 5, as one of the top 5 political comic books by CNN, this is not just a read, it's an experience. Created by artists Durgabai and Subhash Vyam and written by Sri Vidya Natarajan and S. Anand, Bhimayana is basically drawn from the incidents of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar that were mentioned in his autobiographical notes in his book, Waiting for Visa. So it basically talks about his encounters with caste discrimination in striking Gond art. So instead of portraying the text and the image in rigid comic panels like in squares and boxes, this entire graphic novel does away with all these boxes and rectangles. Like, it moves beyond those, and all the pages, they are filled with fluid Digna patterns, basically the traditional Gond designs. So this entire graphic novel is divided into 3 parts. The first part is titled as Water. Now, what is happening in this part is that you see the childhood of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar is detailed over here, and specifically talking about that one incident in school where he faced a lot of humiliation for just asking drinking water. The second part is titled as Shelter, in which we talk about how Bhimrao Ambedkar was so qualified and was so educated, but despite of his qualifications and education, he was denied accommodation on the basis of untouchability. And the third part is titled as Travel, basically detailing his journey to investigate a Dalit boycott in Dhulia and how this entire journey becomes a metaphor for the entire struggle itself. So to sum it up, when we talk about Bhimayana, it is not just narrating Ambedkar's life. It immerses you in the visual as well as the emotional reality of caste-based oppression. So, there we have it. These are the 5 most important and powerful graphic novels that you should read because they talk about so many things from gender identity, urban alienation to even war. These graphic novels prove how powerful graphic form can be in telling stories that matter. And as a result of which, they are very important for you to understand and prepare for UGC NET English exam. If you found this video informative and helpful, please like, share and subscribe to my channel for more such insights on literature and UGC NET English exam. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next one.